Greetings, Neuse Little Pod listeners. This is your host, Matt Gore, reminding you to please like, follow, subscribe, and share the podcast on your available podcast apps such as Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, iHeartRadio, and any other podcast app you can think of. Share our episodes on Facebook and let us know what you think with a comment or review. Now, please enjoy the show.
Hello, Neuse Little Podcast listeners. I am your friendly neighborhood producer and editor, Toole. I wanted to let you know that Almost Maine, our second show back from the pandemic shutdown, is scheduled for May 14th, 15th, 16th, 21st, 22nd, and 23rd. The Friday and Saturday performances are at 8 p.m., and the Sunday performances are at 3 p.m. As of right now, when this podcast goes live, the opening night, Friday, May 14th performance has reached audience capacity, aka sold out. There is limited seating, so you'll want to call 919-934-1873 to reserve your tickets and make sure you don't miss this funny, quirky production. The show has 7 actors portraying 19 residents of the unincorporated community of Almost Maine as they experience all the good and bad that love holds. Set on a single winter night under the aurora borealis, the community of Almost falls in love, falls out of love, finds friendship changed, and realize the pitfalls and elation of relationships. We hope to see you there.
Hello, and welcome to Neuse Little Podcast, an audio program discussing the almost 50-year history of Neuse Little Theatre and the backstage antics and stories that come along with running a community theater in a small town. I'm your host, Matt Gore, and we are coming to you from NLT's stage and base of operations, the little log cabin located on the banks of the Neuse River in Smithfield, North Carolina. We lovingly refer to it as the Hut. And we are back, Neuse Little Podcast gang, for another episode with someone I've been meaning to get on from the very beginning. She's one of our directors here at NLT and was actually directing the play Never Too Late when the pandemic hit, and it kept getting pushed back and pushed back. But I knew we would eventually start doing shows again, and I knew she would be one of the first people back wanting to do shows again. So I knew I would have a chance to get her on when she directs the shows so we could tie it in. There actually is a method to my madness sometimes. It's my pleasure to introduce producer, director, actress Stephanie Veren. How you doing, Stephanie?
Doing well, thank you, Matt.
So thanks for being here. I really appreciate you coming in today. We're recording this right before rehearsal for Almost Maine, so we're going to try to squeeze it in here and get to work on stage and do what we need to do up there. I am part of the cast of Almost Maine, and Stephanie is directing. But we want to talk more about her origins here at NLT first before we get into anything specific on Almost Maine. How did you end up here at the Hut, Stephanie?
I had been working in Town Players of Garner and was doing a lot of stage managing, a little bit of lights and sound, house managing, and a little bit of acting down there. And I had worked with Sharon Pierce on several shows, Dearly Departed being one of those. And she was in Cabaret in 2001, and they were in need of a stage manager. Tony Pender was directing, and they came into Hell Week with no stage manager, and Sharon then told them that I could stage manage, contacted me and had me come in, and she had the entire cast scared to death because I was a Nazi about keeping everything straight and getting a show running.
Cool. Now, for those of you who don't know, Hell Week is usually what we refer to as Tech Week, and that's the week before we open. Basically, that's the night you're doing here at NLT. It usually involves full dress runs, and then that Thursday night we do an invited audience for our final dress rehearsal. So yeah, for people who don't do this professionally, and for people who hold day jobs, it can be a hellish week for sure, because it's kind of like on other rehearsals. Well, okay, we're gonna get out of here at 9. We're gonna stop at 9. On Hell Week, all bets are kind of off. You don't want to stay too late, but you do kind of have to stay as late as it takes sometimes. So that's why that we would refer to it as Hell Week. So you came on Cabaret. What happened to the others? Did the other guy or the other person just drop out or something? They just did not have anybody, or what?
Mita, you know better than I do. I think they didn't have one at all. And I use the word Nazi because it is cabaret, but I am a stickler for keeping a stage running.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I don't remember if we even had one or if somebody dropped out. We didn't have a regular stage manager like we do now. Like, Steven is our stage manager, more or less, for every show. But I don't remember us having a steady one, and if we did, it was Susan Bulljack, and Susan might have been going back to school or something, if maybe that was the reason why, or maybe Tony just never had anybody, to step in. Who knows? So it was between Susan Bulljack and Mike Wyndham. They sort of did most of our stage managing, and then Mike went to school, Susan went to school, so I think we might have just been without one at the time.
So somebody needed to come in and kind of take charge backstage, is what you're saying.
Yes.
So how did you implement that? I mean, what was it like just walking in there into this running train? You're kind of like jumping onto a moving train here.
Well,
and trying to conduct it to a certain point.
I did. I came in knowing that Sharon had already said, I'm a stickler for getting things done. I came in, the props table was no such thing. Everything was strewn everywhere. There were costume changes going on backstage in odd places. And I came in that first night and set everything down, taped everything up, made a spot for each prop and said, if it's not yours, don't touch it.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think they were used to that kind of thing. And I just kind of jumped in with both feet and made it happen.
Yeah.
Knowing that I needed to get it done.
We had been told that before, but you were an outsider, and Sharon told us that you were very strict, and you were very, if we were going to have a stage manager, we had to get ourselves in line. So we all were like, okay, let's not piss off the new girl. And so that's really how, it's not that, we were like, we don't know how to do this. It's just, you were new. So we're like, nope, we got to put on our best face and do it right.
Yes.
So.
All right. So from Cabaret, how did that, what came next after that?
Well, then we did our 2002 came around, and that was when I started working, doing some set construction and backstage and auditioning for shows.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a fun show to be involved in. That season, I worked on 4 out of the 5 shows that we did.
Mm-hmm.
Dearly Departed, Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, Pajama Games, and Laundry and Bourbon. And 3 of those shows I was on stage as well as set and construction and that sort of
Put a star by Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. I want to come back to that, but I want to ask you something first before we get there. When did this kind of creative partnership with Tony begin? Did that begin on Cabaret?
I believe it did. I think I saw where he needed someone to just kind of come along and be his producer. And it was one of those things that we had. Mary George was a producer. I think Mita had done some producing. We had a few people that would step in and produce a few shows. And it was just one of those things that just Tony and I clicked. And I was able to learn from Mary George what needed to be done. And I just watched, and I enjoyed watching the work. I think after Virginia Woolf was really when it started.
Yeah, Virginia Woolf. Now, Virginia Woolf is, I love Virginia Woolf. I love the movie. I love the play, but it is exhausting. It's exhausting to read. It's exhausting to watch. It's wonderful, but terrible at the same time because it's basically 2.5 hours of people being awful to each other. And from the perspective of an actor, what is that like? Because I can imagine that could be taxing.
It was exhausting. I think we had one cast party. There were only 4 people in the show. Mm-hmm. We were absolutely exhausted. We had gone to Rick Flores' house, and I actually fell down, going down into his den, which was an old converted garage, and nearly fractured my ankle.
Oh, no.
And so I had to come back the next night and then do 2 more weekends with a 3rd-degree sprained ankle. And we're talking fight scenes, and all sorts of things. I was on that foot for 2.5 hours.
For those that don't know, Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf is basically about it's hard to sum up that play in one.
It's 4 people who are not very, let me see, 4 of the worst people you'd ever want to have at a dinner party together.
Right. Everybody gets a moment to be a true ass in that show. That's about as kind as I can put it.
Martha and George's relationship, as he was a professor and she was a professor's
they're on
wife.
a college campus.
They're on a college campus. She is never been able to have children with the two of them. So they have created this fictional child amongst them, and it was something that they kept to themselves. Well, there was some flirtation going on that night at the dinner party. Martha is a bit of a flirt and a vamp. She looks to pull George's buttons.
And it should be mentioned, they're both full-blown alcoholics.
They're full-blown alcoholics.
Yeah, not even messing around. Yeah.
And so the night starts with they have been out. They have invited this young couple. He's a new professor and his new bride to the house. And the young professor is looking to get a leg up on campus by doing whatever he can.
Right. He's coming over because he thinks this will help his career. He has no idea. He just went down the seventh circle of hell. He has no idea what he's in for.
So the night ensues with drinking that begins, and the trips to the bar continue throughout the night. And things get much uglier as the night goes on. Martha and the young professor wind up having a bit of a flirtation and a bit of time alone on stage. That show, the two main characters, George and Martha, are probably off stage all of about 2% of the time, 2% of the pages of the script. It's a 275-page script.
Yeah,
it's enormous.
I was gonna say it's a paperback novel.
It is. Edward Albee is a prodigious writer. Sammy was your husband. You played
George.
Martha, and the two younger people are people that kind of came and went. Not that they weren't good. It's just they moved away or something.
Well, Rick was with us for a while.
Oh, okay. All right. I was thinking there was another dude. I'm sorry.
No, Rick Flores had been with us for a while. He played the young professor, and I can't remember what the name of the professor's name, what the young guy's name is. And then the girl who played, her name was Honey. The character's name was Honey, but that was the only one she was ever in. So we never saw her again.
She worked with us, and she went to New York.
Okay.
And I think she did some acting up there. That's what her hopes were.
Right.
But I never heard anything else from her. She was really good.
Yeah. I have seen this production, believe it or not. I have seen it on an old VHS tape that I borrowed from Toole. And I was just like, oh, who's a friend? I love that play. And I watched it. The quality. This was 10 years ago, so I bet it'd be looking like very poor quality for the VHS.
Actually, it was 20 years ago.
Yeah, I was 10 years ago when I watched it.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say
yes.
The videotape was made 20 years ago.
Yes. 2002 was when y'all did that show.
Yeah, VHS tapes are only supposed to last about 10 years, and we did not get around to trying to save them until much, much later.
Tony also, during that show, had me, first time I'd ever done it, paint a visual picture of me and that child that they kill off in the show. And I had to have a physical picture of the description, the movie rolling in my head.
Right.
And it was the first time I had ever done that sort of thing.
Yeah, not the movie they made with Elizabeth Taylor. You're talking about the reality in your head. This happened.
Visual picture that this is me walking with this child along the river, and the things that we did and what it looked like as we were walking, and so that I could feel the emotions, and so that the audience could feel those emotions. And there was one night that I think it was dress rehearsal, we had invited Harbor House.
Yeah, that's the house for abused women.
We had invited them to come see the show. And one of those ladies latched onto me, because we were standing down here at the front of the stage to greet the audience, and she latched onto me and just bawled in my arms.
I'm sure that was a powerful moment.
And that was a very powerful moment. Tony would not let me cry on stage, even though I was to that point of absolute tears. And I had to go off stage at the end of the show, break down into into Sammy's arms, and thank God Sammy was who he is, and the gentle soul that he is, that he was able to, in just the 30 seconds that it took the other two to come and take their bow, to get me pulled back together so that I could walk out on stage and take a bow with him.
It's powerful. That also displays trust.
Extreme trust.
Yeah, I don't think you could pull something like that off without trusting the director, your fellow actors, and stuff like that. Not at just a skill level, but at an emotional level.
And that was a very emotional show.
I'm sure that was your crucible. That was your
Yes,
crucible.
that was my crucible.
That was your trial by fire. Interesting. It's odd how in different acting scenarios that come along those moments that kind of make or break moments, Am I good enough to do this? Am I not, All right. So moving on from that, when did you first start to get an inkling that you wanted to direct? Did you have those aspirations before you came here?
I had not. I had done some assistant directing with Tony. I think there were a couple of seasons, 3 or 4 seasons that I assistant directed with Tony and had started being his producer.
Mm-hmm.
And it was after that I was like, you know what? I think I want to do this. I want to give it a try.
Mm-hmm.
And so in 2009 2009, Limia Tenor was my first show.
Yep. I had forgotten up until recently that was your first show, and that was my 3rd show. Here I auditioned for that and got cast as Max in one of my favorite roles that I've ever done. Tell us about that process. Tell us what it was like to kind of gather your cast, for your first shot here at NLT, because that's still a memorable show. It still is.
It is. I had seen several of the actors and their performances before, but thank goodness I had Mita as my assistant director on that one. And I had spent enough time with the show that I understood where I wanted to go with it. And there were times where I turned to Mita and say, here's what I'm thinking, is this going to work? How do I get it to that point? And I think one of those moments was when we were trying to rehearse the curtain call. And in Limia Tenor, the curtain call in the script is the entire show run in less than 60 seconds. And it is very difficult to do because you've got to do it in such a way that the audience recognizes the main points in the show, but you don't have time to do costume changes.
Right. Basically, you run the full entire show in 90 or so seconds.
Yeah.
It's something, having done it twice, it's something, both times it was kind of the same thing, where it was like, you were serious from the get-go that we're doing this, and then the other player was going like, if we get around to this, we'll do it. But I fought for it because it was just a great encapsulation moment of the show. And
I had spent probably 6 months with the script and had known what I wanted to do. And I knew when I cast it that I wanted to do the speed run at the end of the show for the curtain call. 60 to 90 minutes. They give you a particular
seconds.
Music. 60 seconds to 90 seconds. And they give you a particular sound bite music to use.
Yeah.
And so to be able to run that entire encapsulation of the show we decided after talking with Mita that we needed an entire rehearsal dedicated to just the curtain call.
You do a 90-minute show in 90 seconds.
90-minute show in 90 seconds. So you hit all the comedic beats in that 90 seconds.
And that was, to me, a fantastic cast. I had Matt, yourself, as Max. I had your love interest was Abby Jordan. The Tito
Morelli.
Tito Morelli was Randy Jordan. Teresa Rose played his wife. And then I had
the wonderful Maria.
And then I had Reggie Parker and Kay Hewitt.
Yep, and let's not forget Rhonda.
And Rhonda was one of the ladies' friends. And then I had a bit part for the bellhop, which was Spencer Capel.
Yep.
And so it was an excellent cast. They gave everything they could to me, and I felt like it was my best beginning that I could have ever given as a director.
Yeah, it was a fun show. A lot of energy on stage. Exhausting, but would do it again in a heartbeat. And yeah, I love Ken Ludwig. He's a great script writer. His adaptations of Three Musketeers and Sherlock Holmes are amazing. And a great other script that he wrote is Moon Over Buffalo. Staples for community theater. Moon Over Buffalo and Lemmy and Tenor are staples. Let's move on from that. What was your next directorial effort after Lemmy and Tenor?
You Can't Take It With You.
Yes. Now this show won the Cannon for Best Show, and I remember this was a Kaufman, and what's the other one? I always forget. Marty Hart and Kaufman. Yeah. And basically, what's that show about?
That one is about an eccentric family. The patriarch is Grandpa. That one was played by Sammy Smith. Joyce played his daughter. Her husband, she wanted to be a writer, and she had these two cats that she cared for that sat on her table with her as she typed. However, they weren't real cats, even though she treated them like real cats. They were stuffed cats. And I don't know if they were supposed to be taxidermied or not, but we had realistic looking cats that she had there on her table. There was an aquarium of snakes. Her husband created fireworks in the basement. She had an eccentric friend that, and also Joyce's character wanted to be a painter. And so she would at times give up the writing and take up the painting, and she was awful at it, but she was going to be a painter. There were eccentric characters that came in and out of that house the entire time. And there was also the two daughters, one of which was trying to introduce her boyfriend to the family. And his family comes to eat dinner with them, and we have the Russian Duchess. We also have a Russian ballet teacher. The youngest daughter and her husband are just as eccentric. Anything goes in this house. Whatever interest you have, you're allowed to follow. During the dinner scene, I believe that was when the fireworks exploded down in the basement. The mother and father, played by the fiancés or the boyfriend's mother and father, were played by Stephen Roberts and Teresa Rose.
Somehow got Stephen on stage.
We did get Stephen on stage. Sean Braswell and Jessica Conrad Sawyers were the other two. That was the young daughter and the boyfriend. And then I also had Spencer on the show again. He was the husband of the youngest daughter who wanted to be a ballerina. And so the entire cast of characters on this stage. And then we are raided by the feds, the G-men, towards the end of the show because of the fireworks that had blown up the bottom in the basement.
Yeah.
Everybody is there, and the mother is appalled. The fiance's mother is appalled, but the father decides that it is the kind of life that he wished he had allowed himself to have. And so he starts to really enjoy himself. The daughter decides that she just needs to, no matter what, accept that this is what her family is. She loves them no matter what, and no matter what, they're her family for life.
Interesting.
I always think of it as a, it's a little, in my head it reminds me of the Monsters, because you've got this eccentric group of people who are a family and the people who come in and out, but you've got that normal one who doesn't quite fit in with the rest of the family, and she's just trying to live a normal life. So that's sort of how it is. They have a lot of interest, but very little talent amongst them. So they just sort of do what they want, and I guess they're well off, so they don't really have to do anything for a living, quote unquote. So they just kind of do what makes them happy.
Mm-hmm.
And she, goes to work every day, and she works in an office, and she falls in love with the boss's son and all that sort of stuff. And she just wants to live a normal, average life. And it's hard to do when your parents are doing crazy things like making fireworks in the basement, and your sister thinks she's a prima ballerina and she has no talent whatsoever.
Right. Curious Savage is one you directed that I was also in. Tell us a little bit about that one, because that one, I like that play a lot. I do. It's a very sweet play, but it's also layered in a way you wouldn't expect. Tell us a little bit about that one.
The main character has checked herself in, or her family has put her in an insane asylum.
Yeah, against her will.
Against her will. Her son and her two sons and her daughter are trying to find her money that she has hidden. She is threatened that she has invested it elsewhere in things that would not continue to make money. One son is a politician. The other one, I don't even remember what he did.
He was a judge.
A judge. And the daughter used to be a beauty queen, and she wants to continue the lifestyle that she is accustomed to.
Yeah,
I think she's on like marriage number 3 or 4 or something. Yeah.
And so the mother is refusing to give up where she has hidden the bonds. The mother was placed in a halfway house, a
assisted
respite
living
area, assisted living, where many of the characters had emotional baggage. One fellow was in World War II, and he felt like he had PTSD from the war, and he thought he was grossly disfigured, that his right side of his face was, destroyed in a bomb explosion, which it actually was not.
Yeah, his face is fine, but psychologically
He sees himself with massive injuries, and that nobody should ever have to look at him. But he is an extremely talented piano player. Then you have a young lady who is very
emotionally stunted.
Emotionally stunted is a good way to express that. She likes to make her own clothes. She doesn't have access to needle and thread because it could be a danger to, but she has made herself an outfit put together with safety pins. Mm-hmm. And then we have an older lady who has decided that she is a painter, and she paints the entire show, and she doesn't like a lot of things. And the only thing you get her to say are the things that she doesn't like.
Yeah, that's how she communicates.
And that's how she communicates. And then there's another young fellow who is a mathematical genius. And he takes it that he can play the violin. He and the young lady fall in love with each other and have a very sweet kind of love story between them. Mm-hmm. And then there is a young mother who lost her child at a very young age. But her time here, she believes that she still is a mama, that her child is alive, and that's what she continues to believe. And the psychiatrist, played by Sammy Smith, allows them to have these dreams about themselves.
Right.
Kay Hewitt is my leading lady, and she carried a teddy bear the entire time.
Indeed. Which at spoiler at the end of the play, you find out that's where they've been hiding the money.
But the 3 children, the politician, the judge, and the daughter, who is on her 3rd marriage, is a former beauty queen, all want her money.
Yeah.
And she will not tell them where it is, and they've committed her to this assisted living facility.
Yeah, so legally they can, the money can be turned over to them or something because she's trying to deem her incompetent.
Yes, they're trying to deem her incompetent. And she decides, as she's living here, that she likes each one of these people. She likes who they are. She accepts them for who they are.
Mm-hmm.
And she sees the beauty in each one of these cast of misfits that she's living with. And at the end of the play, there is a tableau where we see each one of these characters in the light in which they truly see themselves.
Yes. In my opinion, I didn't see Savannah Sipping Society before Almost Maine, your most recent directorial effort. But in my opinion, the tableau at the end of Curious Savage is the best thing you've ever done as far as directing is concerned, because I remember it very vividly. Because I could see it because I actually wasn't in that scene. But yes, it's their version in their mind of what they aspire to be. You know, of what I think they're perfectly content with the people they are now, but it's just like, what if this is how they see themselves? You know, these are
The mother actually has her child
Right.
sitting with her. The young lady is dressed in a beautiful outfit of her own creation, exquisite outfit. The mathematician has playing the violin beautifully. The PTSD, the soldier, has it accepted himself, and he's playing beautiful piano, and the nursing assistant is sitting there with him, and the mother is on the sofa with the little boy.
Yeah.
And so the story, and then it's just her having given up or burned all the bonds, and she's fixing to leave the asylum because, the kids have lost their bid. And she sees them in the beauty of accepting people for who they are, no matter their flaws.
And it's a beautiful little moment because, in a way, at the beginning of this play, it's about a family that's being torn apart by money. And at the end of the play, she's found a new family.
She's found a family of love.
Yeah, unconditional love.
Exactly. I think one of my hardest shows to direct, other than Lend Me a Tenor, was probably Blithe Spirit.
Okay.
And that was because of the special effects that needed to happen and having the ghost enter onto stage without coming through doors.
I've directed a version of Blithe Spirit. I loathe the Blithe Spirit. I don't like Blithe Spirit in the scripts at all. The reason why it annoys me is because no coward can turn a phrase like no one else. Not since Shakespeare can this man spout out a very well-constructed, witty sentence. However, he does not play by his own rules when it comes to the afterlife and ghosts, because he kind of makes them up as he goes along. And this is hard for a director because at the same time you're trying to make the play make sense. And I think the author kind of abandoned that idea about in Act 2. So, from your perspective, what was challenging about it?
I think the special effects, but it was also trying to keep the characters real, including the ghosts, with the script that was given, because it kind of got a little iffy at points, as you said, trying to get things to make sense, and who was speaking and him not being able to hear.
Right.
Or he could only hear, but he couldn't see. And
it's confusing.
It's
I'm
very
sorry,
confusing
Noel, it's
for him.
confusing. Because I'm sitting here trying to figure out what is he here. Yeah, exactly what you said, Steph. Yeah, I agree with you. Because the play has a great ending, but then it decides to go on for another act. And I'm stopping. I'm just riffing on the script now. Okay, So tell us about Savannah Sipping Society, because that was I did as I said I didn't see that one. That was during my surgery. But tell me about that one, because it was very well received.
That one, we were in blocking. We had finished up blocking, and at about the same time, the St. Paul's church down here, the Episcopal church down the street, where 2 of my 4 actresses attended church, were having a wine and cheese tasting. And so we decided to meet before rehearsal one night and to go down to the wine and cheese tasting as a cast and director bonding time. And we had ourselves a good old time sipping some wine and eating some cheese. And then the girls decided, Mary Lee and Kathy Nixon decided to buy lottery tickets.
Yeah, for the drawing at the last second.
For the drawing at the last second. And let's just say they had gotten a little boisterous about it.
At a wine tasting, you said?
At a wine tasting. And Kathy wound up winning the gift basket.
Naturally.
And so we are walking back from St. Paul's, and Kathy has her 6 bottles of wine, her smoked sausages, and her cheese, all in this basket, and she's carrying it back, enjoying herself quite immensely. And we try to come back to rehearsal, and the one person who had been off book, Kathy, could not remember her lines. And so
I'm surprised you attempted a rehearsal after that.
we continued rehearsal, surprisingly enough, and we attempted to rehearse, and it got to the point where it became a giggle fest.
Yeah.
And so we decided it was no longer feasible to have rehearsal, and we made sure that Rich was called
To pick
come
Kathy.
get Kathy.
Yeah, her husband, yeah.
Her husband came to come get her. We had a blast. It bonded the cast after that they really truly became these best friends on stage.
Gotcha.
And I think that's what made the show such. It's a great script. There are some really funny moments in it. It's a Jones Hope Wooten. Of course it's going to be funny.
One of their better ones.
It's one of their better ones.
Yeah.
They really enjoyed spending time with each other. They cared for each other on the stage. And so when we got to the end of the show each night, and they were on the balcony in Paris, you could tell that there was friendship there. You could tell that these ladies had spent a year together getting to know each other and to enjoying each other's company and caring about each other's lives.
Yeah. Yeah, the Jones Hope Wooten, they always do well with scripts that are just women-based. I don't know what it is, Dixie Swim Club, Savannah Sipping Society, and a couple others. Those usually do well. They all do well, but those are the ones that are actually, have a little bit of, pathos to them. All right, so let's talk about Almost Maine before we wrap up here a little bit. Almost Maine is the show we are currently rehearsing. We are heading into our 4th week of rehearsal, and we open in around 2 weeks. And it's been an interesting rehearsal process so far because the show's structured very uniquely. It
is structured very uniquely. The script actually calls for a minimum of 4 actors playing 8 different scenes, plus a prologue, interlogue, epilogue. And the show has 8 different scenes with 8 different couples, and each of the group of couples, I decided to go with 7 actors, just so that I could make sure that nobody was paired up with the same actor-actress combination through the entire show.
Right.
I wanted to, none of the scenes relate to each other than the fact they're in the same town, in the same location, or same locations as in Almost Maine, and they're all happening at the simultaneously throughout the evening of one night in this town.
Yes.
So we get to see couples who are just starting love, couples who are ending their love, couples who are unsure of their love for each other, couples that are discovering that they're in love in a way they never thought they would ever be in love before. And so I thought, and I love the way I have matched up acting pairs in this show. We have very young couple in a scene. Then she is in a scene with someone who's, probably 10 years older than her. And it plays very well. I like to see the dynamic of each of these actors and actresses as they play off of someone totally new in their next scene.
From an actor's point of view, I am in it, and I get to play 3 characters in 3 very different scenes. And from an actor's point of view, it's very interesting from the fact that it's one-on-one. Usually it's one-on-one with another actor in every scene. So you kind of gotta bring your A game to every scene because there's no other background noise to fall back on. It's just you and another actor doing this scene in a very short amount of time. You have to get on stage, establish a character, establish a conflict, resolve that conflict, or at least make that conflict evolve into something else with pathos, and then move on to the next scene. You got to do it all over again. So it's interesting. It's kind of like an actor's version of Wipeout, that show where you run the obstacle course, and you have to like continually evolve in how you do it. From your perspective, directing that, is that what you see? That is kind of a unique challenge.
I do. What I have enjoyed seeing is how each of the actors go about developing their different characters that they're playing, and seeing what I like to do with actors is when I cast a show, I may have a way I thought it would go, but I always allow the actors to dictate a lot of what I'm seeking. There are times where I have the script calls for a certain character, a certain softness, a certain firmness, a speed at which they speak, pauses that they'll take in the script. They're there. I just need, as a director, to help the actors see those moments in the script and when to take them.
Right.
One of the things about this script and the way he's written it is the language. He even gave punctuation in the script where a lot of actors being on stage wait for the previous person to finish their line, and then they pick up their line. The pause, you don't want to be too long there. This director, or this writer, has written it so that you talk on top of each other.
Yeah. So there's no choice but to, yeah.
There's no choice but to. But that's how people talk in real life anyway. Now, not necessarily in a one-on-one conversation, but in real life conversations, when you're in a group, you're going to talk over the top of each other.
Right, yeah. And even when I'm directing a show, I try to insert that whenever I can, because you're right, that's how people talk. They talk over one another. They don't usually let people finish what they're saying. They usually jump in. And this writer goes a step further where you go like, no, this is where you jump in. This right here is the moment you jump in right here, and there's no other way to do it.
And this author also writes to the point of, you stop saying the line, but here's the thought process that goes with the rest of that line.
As an actor, I'm not sure how I feel about that, but I get where he's going. But that feels a little like working me like a puppet in my back. I don't know. When I first read the script, I thought that was odd. I really did.
Yeah, but it gives an actor a chance to really firmly communicate silently what needs to be said, which a lot of actors, not a lot, there are some actors that never quite learn that, and then there are actors that do it extremely well.
Right. Well, it's this script is very popular amongst high schoolers.
It is.
For beginning acting, for beginning actors, for people who are just taking it as a class, and it's structured very well for that.
It is very well for that.
And that's good. And what you're saying, the emotion in the brackets, what they want you to feel but not say, that's great for beginning actors. But as someone's done it just a little bit, I bristle at it because it's like, well, you haven't heard me say it yet, So, but that's just my stuff.
Yes, so. And I haven't been enforcing that
because most of the time we do it anyway.
You do it anyway.
Yeah.
Most of our actors do. Now there are, as I said, there's one or two every once in a while, especially if they're extremely new actors that need to be some of that stuff needs to be handed to them. But this cast has been amazing to watch develop their characters. We're a couple weeks in,
2 weeks out from
2
today.
weeks out from the show, and we're already ready to start running the show Monday.
Yeah, we're in good shape. Good shape. And that's something that's pretty consistent on your shows. The cast is usually in good shape. I haven't been there for every show. Obviously, I haven't been a fly on the wall for every single rehearsal. But it just seems like, in general, NLT, for the most part, they're usually ready to put on a show when it's time for opening night. And that's a testament to our directors, but our actors, and also the people that work backstage, or Steven and the crew, and Rick and the lighting, whoever the lighting person is for that show. I think we're going to about run out of time, because I do believe I hear the actors on the porch right now waiting for rehearsal to start. So, and it seems like no matter how I move, I'm going to make some type of noise on this podcast. So I'm going to go ahead and put a pin in it there. Thank you, Stephanie, for coming on the show and telling us about your process and stuff like that. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for having me.
All right. And we should have announcements coming up soon about our new season. That's going to, our 47th season. And it's been decided. We just got to cross a couple of T's and dot a couple of I's, and it'll be announced pretty soon. And we thank you for listening to Neuse Little Podcast. Keep an eye out for Almost Maine that's coming up. And when you hear this, it'll be opening day. This podcast will debut on May 14th, and that is opening day for Almost Maine. Come down and grab your tickets. No on demand for this one. This one's at the theater only. There's not an on-demand option for Almost Maine. Just want to put that out there in case it was not clear. All right, gang. We'll see you next time. And I'm your host, Matt Gore. This is Neuse Little Podcast, signing off. Credits for the show. Your host and creator is Matt Gore. That's me. My producer and editor is Mita Toole.
That's me.
Music is by Cody Walker. Please go look up Cody on Cody Walker Music on YouTube, and he's also on Cody Walker Music on Facebook as well. He's local, so and he's got a couple of albums out. So why don't you give him a listen? Easy listening, John Denver type of guitar voice. That Cody Walker. All right, thanks for listening. We'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.